In 1984 or 85, his advertising agency's billing was $25 million. I don't even know how to process $25 million for 1984, 85. I don't know how much that money used to feel like in that era. That book talks about how David Ogilvy looked at life, how he looked at business, but how he looked at people. So he said, don't keep a dog and bark yourself. And I laughed so hard on it. So one book that is my all-time favorite is this book called Confessions of an Advertising Man. It is by the legendary David Ogilvy, the founder of O&M, Ogilvy and Mather. It used to be Ogilvy, to start with. I think that book was written in 70s, or maybe I think this one was written in early 80s. David Ogilvy is a legend. In 1984 or 85, his advertising agency's billing was $25 million. I don't even know how to process $25 million for 1984, 85. I don't know how much that money used to feel like in that era. And mind you, this was a services business. It was advertising business. It was services as fuck. Like, there was no product. There was no productization. There was no possibility. And David Ogilvy was known as quite a sharp, smart, but absolutely ruthlessly objective man. And this book is this thin. Like, it's not a very, very thick book. But that book is extremely thick in its insights. I can tell you that I cannot read more than 3 pages of that book without just shutting it down and just thinking कि ये क्या बोल रहा है. And lot of things that that book actually taught me, lot of things it validated for me, lot of things you feel कि okay, ठीक जा रहे हैं, गलत नहीं कर रहे हैं. पर बहुत सारी ऐसी चीजें थी जो उस बुक से मैंने सीखी. I've been recommending that book to a lot of entrepreneurs of all types and kinds. I've been recommending it to in fact, if you're in a services business, I would recommend that book like 1,000%. But even if you are in a product or any kind of business where you are, working with teams, even if you're an individual professional, I think some of the things that book talks about, it talks about how David Ogilvy looked at life, how he looked at business, but how he looked at people. Because he really has first principles driven approach to hiring, to retaining, to employees, to teammates, to vendors, and last but not the least, customers. His insights on who should be your customer, who should not be your customer, what to do when you run into a customer who is a bad customer, who may not be sharing your worldview, who may not be behaving and acting in line with what is your expectation and worldview of a customer. When to change your worldview. One insight I can quote, from his book was, there were many which I laughed very, very hard on and laughed because it hit me hard. It was a slap on my face. He said, he was talking about hiring, and he was talking especially about, hiring important people, skillful people, senior people, people who are supposed to have a lot of responsibility and ownership in your system. And he talked about that how so many times we hire, a lot of these people who are supposed to carry so much burden, from you so that you can, continue to build the company. And how often that it doesn't work because they don't carry that burden, because they don't really act the way they are supposed to. They're not acting the way they promised. They're not sharing the responsibility. You still carry the entire burden on your shoulders and you get weighed down by that while, they're not really delivering what they're supposed to. Remember I said David Ogilvy was known to be extremely ruthlessly objective. So the answer the line he writes is a little politically incorrect. But I think I really believe in what he said. He basically talked about that, please don't hire people who don't, act responsibly or with high ownership. the ownership that they're supposed to, the skill that they're supposed to, bring to table, the outcome that they are supposed to carry to the end. If they're not doing that, let them go. So he said, don't keep a dog and bark yourself. And I laughed so hard on it because I almost imagined myself doing it. That you basically hire people and then that you do their work because they are not doing it. He also said the statement which I think now it's a very popular cliched one. I don't know how many people actually credit it to him. He talked about the importance of hiring the right kind of talent and then paying them right kind of money. So he's also talking from the other side. And he's saying that as an employer, as somebody who wants A players to work with you, he also talks about that don't, pay pennies and then expect $100 in outcome. So the sentence he uses is, you pay peanuts, you get monkeys. And that's, he actually says you throw peanuts and you get monkeys, which is actually true. I've been there, I've done that. I've seen that where you justify this with your budget, you justify this with your constraints. But the fact is that if you really want to play the A game, if you really want to make sure that your outcomes are brilliant, it is your job to find A players and definitely pay them what an A player demands. The right way to look at it is that if you actually start finding A players in the team, you don't need as many. In my own experience, I have seen 10 people getting replaced by one so many times over. I've seen 18 people getting replaced by one person, where that one person came at 10x the cost, from that 18 perspective, but it was still 80% cheaper, and efficiency was great. There is no cookie cutter to find such people, to retain such people, to work with such people. But I don't think it's optional. So Confessions of an Advertising Man is something that I can't recommend enough to anyone. A lot of times I'm asked this question, and this is a topic which is very close to my heart, to also choose your customers, to not work with wrong customers, to not work with customers who kill you for pennies, who demand too much but don't want to pay enough, who also don't value your service or your product for what it is worth. And it is not only their fault. Maybe you're not delivering. This is all assuming that your service, your product is on point. You're delivering exactly what you promised. If that is true, then you need to choose your customers right. And David Ogilvy talks about so many examples, back in 70s, back in 60s, back in 80s, where he refused to take, customers which were probably the most coveted, brands. He refused to take customers which were governments. Just because he asked them that, what's your process of selection? There's this one story wherein he walks into a room and these guys basically said, oh, so Mr. David, we want you to present to us. He said, what do you want me to present? He said, we want you to, make a pitch for a agency and talk about what you guys do, and then explain how do you guys charge and how will you serve us. And I don't know if it's right or wrong, but David basically told them back. He said, well, a couple of points before I make the presentation. Number one, you guys invited me here. So in case you did not do research on my agency before inviting me, I don't think any presentation that I make here will impress you today. Second, the fact that you did not do this research, I don't think you're valuing your time. 3, I don't think I need to tell you how much we are going to charge, because I don't know what we are going to charge. I need to know what is it that you're trying to achieve from this. And if your process is to find the cheapest agency, let me save the time for all of you gentlemen here in the room. We are out of the bidding game. And that is super true. Like we do that all the time. And it took us years to, continuously learn and hone this. But we do this. This was not arrogance. To a normal person, this may feel and look like arrogance. It is not. If you think about it, it's actually true. If a prospective customer is inviting you, as much it is your responsibility to research about them, to present your solution for the problem statement that they make. It is also their responsibility to do their research, because if they don't know who they want to work with, probably they are also lacking the research. And it may be your choice to still work with them, and that is fair. But you should know that you're not going to achieve prosperity from there, because these are the customers who don't know who you are, who don't know why are they working with you, who probably believe that the product and service you're bringing on table is just a commodity that they can buy cheaper somewhere else. These customers are going to churn next year, next to next year, 3 years, 4 years from now anyway. They're going to give you a lot of heartburn in between. They may not value your time, because for them your time is also commodity, and you should work with them if you also believe your time is commodity, in which case absolutely perfect. In which case you're also making a choice. But if you believe that your time is not a commodity, if you believe that what you're bringing on table has a lot of value and is going to deliver outcome for them, the outcome which they are demanding from you, and that is going to be valuable for them, you should absolutely choose your customers, and that is going to make your life, your business extremely prosperous.